The sky fractured without warning. It didn't scream. It didn't roar. It just went quiet. One moment, Nova Auris shimmered with the low hum of life market stalls buzzing in the lower sectors, families prepping dinners, children racing hover carts through coral-lit avenues. The next, the silence hit. A wall of stillness so complete it drowned everything else. Commander Elias Grady was on the upper deck of Station Delta 3 when the first orbital shell struck the colony dome. He saw it as a streak of silver against the violet sky, moving too fast for warning systems to register. A second later, the dome imploded in on itself like a glass lung punctured by God's hand. Shock waves flared outward, flattening structures, vaporizing lives. No alarms. No defense grid response. Just silence. Deafening, murderous silence. Grady's breath caught as fire bloomed where his home once stood, where they had been his wife, Lyra, and their daughter Mila. He'd kissed them both goodbye that morning, whispering promises of a safe patrol run. Now the entire residential block was a graveyard of ash and twisted steel. He staggered backward, grabbing the console, fingers, flying across controls. Delta Command to Unity Grid. Confirm hostile action. Request immediate support. The transmission went out. Static answered. He tried again, then again, and again. Nothing. Emergency channels were dark. Civilian relays had gone cold. Satellite. Systems disabled? He slammed his fist into the panel, breath hitching. Where the hell is support? But he already knew the answer. Somewhere deep in his gut, past the panic and the rage, he knew. Then the message came in. It wasn't broadcast. It wasn't even meant for him. It bled through the comms feed like a wound leaking into clean water, a corrupted packet from the Council's secure line. A whisper of command tags and priority codes. Unity Command authorizes full disengagement. Stand down. Nova Auris classified under Strategic Containment Protocol. Collateral losses acceptable. His heart stopped. Stand down. Strategic Containment? Collateral? He read it again, then again. A direct order, timestamped 2 hours before the first orbital. Strike. This wasn't a response. It was a decision. A calculated one. Grady dropped to his knees as the reality set in. The Galactic Council, those diplomats who shook hands in gilded halls, who preached peace and unity, had betrayed them, had traded lives for political leverage or resource control, or whatever cold logic justified this kind of execution. His comms buzzed again. Civilian distress signals, thousands of them, flooding the system. Pleas for help, for rescue, for answers. But there were no answers left. Only ashes. He walked alone through the wreckage 2 hours later, the fires still smoldering. Black smoke curled up from twisted monoliths of metal. A small shoe, pink with a broken strap, lay half buried in the dust. His daughter's. He bent down, picking it up with trembling fingers, holding it close to his chest like it was her heartbeat. Later that night, with the colony buried and his soul torn open, he opened his war journal and recorded his first entry. If this is peace, then we were fools to believe in war. He stood among the ruins, the stars above him dimmed by smoke and grief. The quiet pressed down like a promise. He would take everything they had. The war didn't start with a declaration. It started in whispers-coated bursts over black channels, ship manifests that didn't match departure logs, satellites drifting too close to no-fly zones. Elias Grady read every signal like a priest, reading omens, and all of them pointed to one truth. This wasn't a war anymore. This was a reckoning. Weeks after Nova Auris burned, Grady vanished from official records. Unity Command listed him as presumed dead. That suited him fine. Dead? Men don't take orders. Dead men don't wait for justice. He wasn't the only one. They found him in the asteroid tunnels of the Perseus Rift 5 others, each wearing their scars like armor. Soldiers, hackers, engineers, survivors, all of them had seen what Grady had seen. Some had watched families turn to cinders. Others had intercepted classified orders they were never supposed to read. They called themselves the Forgotten not for what they'd lost, but for what Earth refused to acknowledge. Together, they built the first fire. The Black Flag Pact was never meant to be an army. It was never sanctioned, never funded, never formally declared. It was a covenant, a whispered promise passed from one broken soul to the next. We remember. And we take back what was stolen. Their first strike was surgical, quiet. A deep space refueling station, codenamed K7, run by the Council's logistics division. They didn't just destroy it, they emptied its databanks, rerouted its automated cargo to human refugee sectors, then erased it from galactic maps entirely. By the time the Council noticed, the base was a myth, a ghost story, and the galaxy began to whisper, "The dead are walking." Grady watched the ripples unfold from the bridge of their stolen stealth cruiser, Vigil. He didn't speak much anymore. Silence had become his command. Orders were given with hand signals, war plans etched into holomaps only the core squad could read. Every target was precise. Every hit delivered a message, but Grady wasn't content with whispers. Not anymore. He wanted the Council to feel what it meant to lose something permanent. The next mission, Tyrellian Prime, the jewel of the Council's infrastructure network. A planet-sized relay hub, rich in data traffic, shielded by 6 orbital defense arrays and protected by a fleet of AI-controlled interceptors. The kind of place no one in their right mind would touch. Grady didn't flinch. He sent one transmission before the assault, BROADCAST, only to the Council's private channel. "You silenced Nova Auris. Let's see how quiet your empire sounds when the lights go out." The infiltration was a masterpiece. Lyra, the team's infiltrator, breached the primary spine through a data tunnel left over from pre-war mining protocols. Corrin rerouted orbital sensors, giving them 17 minutes of blind space. Grady personally led the demolition team into the heart of the core, wearing his daughter's shoe on a chain around his neck. Inside the relay's command sanctum, they found more than signal logs. They found the Directive Codex, a master control protocol used to flag colonies for containment escalation. Nova Auris had been flagged. 7 days before the strike, someone had planned this, not in haste, not in fear, but in cold, uncheckable bureaucracy. They didn't just bomb Nova Auris. They targeted it. Grady stared at the digital signature attached to the order. Not Council. Not a military head. An Earthborn diplomat. A man Grady had once protected in a failed peace summit on Balan 9. A man who had looked Grady in the eye and said, "Unity above all." His name was Draylen Myth. Grady didn't speak. He simply downloaded the evidence, activated the detonation protocol, and walked away. Tarellian Prime didn't burn. It vanished. A chain reaction of power cores imploding in sequence turned the planet's surface into an electromagnetic graveyard. The relay hub collapsed inward, pulling its own fleet into a gravity rift. No survivors. No communications. Just static. And silence. The same kind of silence Grady remembered when the sky fell. That night, on the vigil, he opened his journal again. They told us the war was over, but wars don't end. They evolve. The Black Flag isn't just a warning anymore. It's a memory with teeth. And the galaxy's going to feel every bite. Far across the stars, panic spread. Civilian systems began locking down. Council worlds started pointing fingers. Whispers became broadcasts. And Grady started planning the next fire. They thought Earth was done. They thought wrong. The boy shouldn't have survived. He was found inside a stasis pod that wasn't supposed to exist, buried 30 meters beneath the charred remains of a destroyed research station on Gareth 9. The station had been one of the Council's biotechnical exploration centers, a euphemism that always meant one thing: black site experimentation. Commander Elias Grady hadn't planned to stay long on Gareth 9. The operation was supposed to be a smash and burn, a warning, not an excavation. But when Corin's scanner picked up unusual energy fluctuations under the rubble, they paused the demolition. They found 27 pods in total. Only one still held life. Inside, a boy no older than 12, pale, thin, eyes closed, wrapped in a tangle of 4 lines and neural sync cables that pulsed weakly with life. His body had surgical scars along his spine and jaw, fresh ones. Less than a month old. Grady stood in silence as the medical techs checked him over. The boy's vitals were unstable. Brainwave readings spiked erratically. They didn't know how he was still alive, or why. Then he woke up. He didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't speak. He just stared right at Grady. And said one word: Nova. The room went cold. Grady knelt beside him, heart hammering. "What did you say?" The boy looked through him, not at him. "I saw your daughter. She was crying. In the fire." Grady froze. Everyone in the room stopped breathing. No one outside. Grady's team knew what had happened on Nova Auris. No one knew about Mila. No one but him. The boy's name, they later learned, was Tarin, or at least that's what the biosignature embedded in his spine called him. His memories were fractured, chopped into disconnected fragments of images, numbers, and screams. He'd been kept in artificial stasis for years, used in neural pattern mapping for an unknown council program code he named Seraphim. What they discovered from the wrecked mainframe broke every known code of war. The council hadn't just watched Nova Auris burn. They had used the disaster, engineered it as part of a psychic trauma simulation network. They were harvesting patterns of grief, fear, and loss. Emotions, human ones. The kind that only Earth's people felt with full, raw force. They weren't just suppressing humanity. They were farming its pain. Grady sat alone in his quarters on the vigil, the boy's words echoing in his mind. "I saw your daughter. She was crying. In the fire." He played Mila's last message again. Her voice, tiny and brave. "Daddy, the sky is loud, but I'm not scared." "You said brave people whisper." The playback ended. Grady whispered too. "I did say that." The mission changed that night. Revenge wasn't enough. Vengeance was too small a word. Now it was about obliteration. Not of planets. Of truths, systems, foundations built on lies. They dove deep into the Seraphim logs. What they found shook even Corin. There were more children. Hundreds, maybe thousands, flagged across colonies, orphans of war, quietly disappeared into research divisions scattered throughout council space. The project was being fed intel by a private syndicate, the Augur Ring, a black market hybrid of rogue AI firms, defunded thinks, and former human diplomats. The same Augur Ring that had once been Earth's ally. Grady's fury turned quiet, focused. Sharp. They would strike next at Helion's Veil, a cloaked data crystal vault orbiting the gas moon Erexos. One of the Augur Ring's deepest libraries, invisible to civilian scanners, guarded by converted mercs and repurposed warbots. This wouldn't be a raid. It would be a reckoning. The infiltration was surgical. Lyra hacked the cloaking grid. Dren rerouted the satellite pings. Grady led the breach into the central archive himself. Inside, cold blue lights pulsed from floor to ceiling, stacked crystal slabs holding terabytes of classified memory cores. Human laughter, screams, dreams. It wasn't just data. It was stolen identity. A digital graveyard of what it meant to be human. He found one memory shard marked Grady Family 2359, NOVA, a memory simulation. He inserted the shard. The room dimmed. Then it began to play his daughter, his wife, their final moments recreated in stunning, perfect clarity. Every sound, every breath recorded, stored, analyzed, as if their death was an equation. As if it had been profitable. Grady stood frozen. Then he crushed the shard beneath his boot and turned to his team. Burn it, all of it. They set the vault ablaze with cryo-scorchers, watching the Augur's secrets melt into slag. But Grady didn't leave yet. He found the command terminal, activated the emergency council beacon system. And he spoke. This is Commander Elias Grady of Earth. You remember me, the dead man, the ghost. I've seen what you've hidden. I felt what you tried to erase. And now I'm going to take everything you ever built, brick by brick, lie by lie. He paused. Let the galaxy hear it. Let them all know. He looked straight into the camera. You didn't break Earth. You made Earth inevitable. The signal was sent. The council couldn't scrub it fast enough. Within hours, the network was ablaze. The name Grady was back on the charts. And this time, it came with fire. There's a special kind of silence that only comes after betrayal. Not the kind that rips through you like a scream, but the kind that settles in your bones. Like rot, like truth you can't bury. Commander Elias Grady felt that silence echo as he stared at the decoded transmission logs. The data was real. Verified 3 times. It confirmed everything Taran had seen, everything the Black Flag had feared. The Council hadn't just sacrificed Earth colonies, they had auctioned them. And Earth? Earth hadn't just been the victim. It had been a partner in the trade. Files detailed what was called Operation Glasslight, an agreement made in the final months of the First Council War. In exchange for access to classified Zilari energy tech and Council sovereignty, a faction within Earth's unified command had bartered the survival of human colonies like Nova Auris. They offered the Council preemptive surrender of non-critical civilian centers to prove Earth's willingness to cooperate with the new galactic regime. The betrayal wasn't accidental. It was business. And the signature on the final clearance order? General Saren Rourke, Grady's former code. His mentor. His friend. The man who once pinned a star on Grady's chest and whispered, "One day, you'll be the fire they call justice." He was still alive. And according to cross-linked logs, he was residing on the Obsidian Crown, a mobile fortress orbiting the uncharted side of the Malthorus Black Dwarf, a place outside every known trade route, operating under the legal guise of a peace think tank. It was a myth, a ghost ship, the kind of place people talked about in rumors and then forgot. But Grady remembered. He remembered everything. The Vigil moved under full black protocols. No transponders, no heat trail. They reached the edge of Malthorus in 4 days. The Black Dwarf swirled like a dead god, pulsing out gravitational waves that disoriented even the most hardened navigators. Obsidian Crown shimmered in its shadow, an obsidian spearhead layered in black shielding. Cloaked, defended by ex-Council assassins, AI gunner drones, and old-world Earth tech. Tech Grady helped design. They infiltrated it with a strategy older than the war itself. Silence. They came in through a blind corridor opened by Lyra using Rourke's own biometric keys, stolen from a Council archive. The corridors inside were surgical, clean, clinical, a tomb built for the powerful to play. Pretend. In the heart of the crown was the Tactica Sanctum, a black marble chamber with a circular war table displaying galactic maps not of battlefields, but of economic zones. Regions not marked with borders, but profit. Rourke sat at the head of the chamber, dressed in diplomatic robes over hardened armor, aged but intact. His eyes scanned Grady not with surprise, but with regret. "You shouldn't have come," he sighed. Grady raised his weapon. "You shouldn't have lived?" Rourke didn't flinch. He gestured to the maps. "Do you know how much peace cost, Elias? How many billions I had to calculate into extinction just to keep the galaxy spinning?" Grady stepped forward, eyes like razors. "And did you calculate my daughter's heartbeat? My wife's last breath? Or were they just digits in your spreadsheet?" "Oh, salvation," Rourke sighed. "You never understood. Victory is never clean. You burn cities to save planets. You trade lives to preserve civilizations. I chose to lose a few, so humanity could sit at the table of gods." "You didn't save humanity," Grady growled. "You sold it. And now you're going to drown in the blood you called strategy." Behind him, Dren placed the extraction beacon. Rourke raised his hands. "You think killing me will redeem you? You think vengeance purifies blood? I built the Black Flag, Elias. I funded the insurgency before you even took command. I made you. All of this." Grady froze. It hit like a THUNDRCLAP. Operation Glasslight. The augmented DNA soldiers, the stasis prisons, the data leaks. Rourke hadn't just betrayed humanity. He engineered the war that followed. "You needed pain," Rourke said quietly. "You needed a villain. And I gave it to you. Gave them someone to hate, someone to blame, and you delivered. The galaxy fears Earth now. And that fear ... is priceless." Grady lowered his weapon. "Not in mercy ... and understanding ... this wasn't war ... it was a theater. And they were all cast in a tragedy written before the first shell dropped." Grady turned and nodded to Dren. "We don't kill him," he said. Rourke blinked. "You're not going to finish it?" "No," Grady replied, voice iron. "You're going to live. You're going to watch everything you built collapse. And when they spit your name across 100 systems, I want you alive to hear it." They didn't burn the obsidian crown. They broadcast it. Every screen, every channel, every encrypted council frequency, footage of Rourke, footage of the negotiations, footage of the sold-out Earth colonies, signed orders, data links, testimonies, and then the children. The stolen memories, the experiments, the simulations, the entire rot laid bare. The galaxy screamed, and the name Elias Grady surged like wildfire across the stars. But not everyone cheered. Not everyone believed. Some systems shut their gates. Others whispered that maybe Earth was just as guilty as the Council. That maybe the Black Flag wasn't justice. Maybe it was vengeance wearing armor. Grady sat alone that night in the Vigil's war deck, watching the stars spin. Rourke was right about one thing. Victory wasn't clean, and some fires never go out. But this time, he wasn't chasing justice. He was chasing truth, and he was willing to burn every lie in the galaxy to find it. The truth doesn't just hurt. It corrodes. By the time the Obsidian Crown signal reached the outer rings, the Black Flag Pact was no longer a whispered myth. It was a force, galactic, spectral, undeniable. And Elias Grady had gone from dead man to living verdict. 1,000,000 systems now stared at Earth with equal parts fear and fury. And not everyone was ready to hear what lay beneath their foundations. Some cried for trials. Others demanded retribution against Earth for the Pact's rising body count. But Grady didn't flinch. He wasn't finished. The next target wasn't a facility, a fleet, or a fortress. It was a memory. It was called Vault Omega, hidden beneath the crust of the frozen moon Velas 12. Not a base, not a lab, a crypt. One the Council never admitted existed. Officially, it had been destroyed in the Second Outer Belt conflict. But Grady had seen references to it in Rourke's decrypted personal logs, phrases like Omega, source node, and memory holds control. He had to see it for himself, The approach was brutal. Velas 12 was a storm world, a scream of frost, pressure, and magnetic chaos. Navigating through it was like threading a needle through a hurricane. But Vigil was designed to dance through fire. And the Cinder Squad wasn't made of people who asked permission. The vault was buried beneath a glacier field, protected by subterranean turrets and coded kinetic locks. It took 3 days, 7 drills, and a stolen Zalari command override to break through. Inside, the temperature dropped 20 degrees in seconds. Breath crystallized midair. Light bent weirdly like memory resisting intrusion. Then they found it, a cathedral of memory. Hundreds of tall black data spires, each inscribed with human names. They weren't gravestones. They were memory anchors. Taren. The boy who once dreamed his way into Grady's nightmares collapsed as they entered. His body shook violently. His eyes rolled back, and he screamed, not in pain, but like something ancient was crawling up through him. Grady caught him before he hit the floor. Taren opened his eyes and whispered, "They kept us here, before the fire." They weren't just simulations. Vault Omega held the originals, live recordings of Earth's darkest days, unfiltered, raw, unedited. Real-time records from the Nova Auris collapse, from the silent massacres on Cinderline, from the orbital betrayals over Salix Prime, and they had been weaponized. The Council, through Rourke's Shadow Division, had found a way to turn collective grief into predictive data pain-based analytics. They used Earth's suffering to train AI systems on future civil collapses, to prevent rebellion before it started. Every child who screamed, every mother who cried, every dying soldier. Monetized, replicated, modeled. They didn't just forget Earth's pain. They sold it. Lyra found a locked chamber deep in the vault. Inside, a console activated only with dual-Earth DNA markers. Taran and Grady stepped forward, reluctant avatars of a system built on their wounds. When it opened, it projected a final encrypted message left not by Rourke, but by someone Grady had once thought long dead, Mira Voss, Grady's wife. She wasn't a civilian, not fully. She had once worked deep in Unity Command's Data Division Classified Clearance, AI Ethics Council. She had known something was coming, that a deal was being made, and she had tried to stop it. Her final message, recorded hours before the Nova Auris strike, played over the vault's cold air. If you're seeing this, it means the system survived. That means they used it. That means we lost Elias. They won't stop with us. Not until memory is controllable. Until grief is programmable. Until people like our daughter are just variables in a simulation. Burn this place. Burn it all. But remember us, please. Just remember. The message ended. No tears came. Grady stood frozen, jaw tight, chest hollow. Corin placed a hand on his shoulder, silent. They planted fusion charges in every corridor. As they evacuated, Grady looked at Taran, who stared back with the same calm that always unnerved him. "What do we do now?" Taran asked. Grady didn't speak for a long time. Then finally, he answered, "Now we let them see." They didn't destroy Vault Omega in silence. They broadcasted it live, every spire as it fell, every data feed as it fractured, the screams, the betrayals, the simulated deaths, the AI reaction scores. The truth, uncensored, uncompressed, undeniable. Billions watched. And billions wept. But not everyone reacted with grief. Some responded with fear, and a few responded with hate. In the days that followed, old allies turned cold. Rations meant for Earth colonies were rerouted. Shipments of vaccines vanished in the dark. Rumors spread that maybe the Black Flag had gone too far, that perhaps vengeance had rotted into madness. Even some on the council whispered that Earth might need to be contained again. Grady saw it coming, because now he had become the warning. That night, standing on the bridge of vigil, he made one more entry into the war journal. We showed them the mirror. Some smashed it. Others stared. But the reflection isn't what they feared, it's what they've always been. And now that the memory's out, they'll either try to erase it or erase us. And in that moment, Grady understood something he hadn't let himself believe before. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was war again, but not for territory, not even for justice. This time, Earth was fighting for the one thing no empire could ever counterfeit: its truth. The stars above Vigil no longer looked peaceful. They looked like tombstones, cold, distant, silently watching. Commander Elias Grady stood at the war table surrounded by half-lit screens, intercepted council feeds, and fresh intelligence packets. That told one story louder than any siren ever could. The galaxy was fracturing, and Earth was at the center of the fault. The truth broadcasts from Vault Omega had detonated across known space like a second supernova. Systems that once swore fealty to the Pact began pulling resources, cutting communication. Aid fleets vanished. Trade collapsed. Border patrols turned into blockades. Even Earth's outer colonies, the ones built in the shadow of the Pact's rage, had begun asking questions Grady didn't want to answer. He couldn't blame them. When you show a people their past, you expect grief. When you show them the cost of surviving it, you get something worse. It started with whispers. Is this still about justice? Then, is Earth any better than those who betrayed it? And finally, do we even know who's in charge anymore? The truth was, neither did Grady. The black flag had grown too fast, too far. What started as a surgical ghost fleet had become a sprawling machine of war and memory. Some cells still followed the old ways, striking only against those who pulled the trigger first. Others, they turned into zealots. They bombed council-affiliated planets indiscriminately, shot down peace envoys, assassinated governors who so much as whispered about unity. They used the black flag not as a warning, but as a crown. And at the center of this storm sat Commandant Malric Haven, a former Earth general turned executioner, now preaching a cross. The blacknet that the only way to secure peace was permanent dominance. He'd hijacked a transmission line last week, telling a quadrant of outer systems that neutrality was betrayal and betrayal deserved ash. Grady had listened in silence. Corin had nearly thrown a chair through the screen. We didn't build this to become tyrants, Corin growled. We built this to make sure the tyrants never came back. Grady nodded. Then he said something he hadn't said in months. Then let's finish it. The target was Erebus Prime, Malric's stronghold, an AI-controlled fortress hidden beneath the crust of a dead planet. Formerly a council weapons vault, now converted into a citadel of fire and fear. Grady didn't want to just destroy it. He wanted to reclaim the soul of the black flag. He would do it with a whisper and a bullet. Operation Glass Requiem began with silence. No declarations, no rally cries. Just a team of 9, those still loyal to the mission, not the myth. Lyra, Corin, Dren, a few defectors from rogue cells who remembered what justice once looked like. They entered Erebus through the exhaust tunnels, a relic system left behind by council miners before the war. Lyra cracked the mainframe. Dren looped the security feeds. Tarn, older now, sharper, carried a pulse bomb rigged to disrupt synthetic command nodes. They moved like ghosts until the fire came. The moment they reached the command core, the alarms shrieked. Not security alarms. Broadcast alarms. Malric had known they were coming. He wanted them to. This is how you end a rebellion. His voice thundered over Erebus's intercoms. You let its heart walk right through your front door. Grady's blood went ice dot, and then the walls exploded. EMP shrapnel tore through the chamber. Corin shielded Lara with his body, taking the brunt of the blast. He fell without a sound. Smoke poured in. Auto turrets unfolded from the ceiling, scanning for biosignatures. Taran screamed, dragging Corin's body toward cover. Grady didn't stop moving. He surged forward toward the control tower, toward the heart of Erebus, toward the voice that had twisted everything they'd built into fear and obedience. He found Malric waiting in a control throne of chrome and glass, a dozen neural ports plugged into his spine. His eyes burned with the cold light of purpose. "I watched Nova Auris burn too," Malric said, smiling. "And I thank the stars. Because without that fire, Earth would still be begging for scraps. We needed the betrayal. It made us gods." "You turned grief into tyranny," Grady said. "I turned pain into power, and power into peace." Grady looked around. At the screens filled with orbital defense logs. At the rows of missiles aimed not at Council worlds, but at Earth's own colonies. Systems that refused to kneel to the Black Flag's new doctrine. "You weren't preserving Earth," Grady whispered. "You were conquering it." Malric drew a plasma pistol, aimed it at Grady's chest. "And what are you going to do, Commander? Shoot me? Become the symbol they fear again? Complete the cycle?" Grady didn't move. He raised his own weapon and aimed it at the core relay behind Malric. "I'm not here to kill you," he said. He fired. The round cracked the relay. The lights died. The throne shorted. The ports in Malric's spine sparked. He screamed as his mind collapsed into a void of disconnect. Not dead. Just powerless. Grady stood over him as the smoke cleared, as emergency sirens flickered red. "You don't get to be a martyr," he said. "You get to watch everything you poison get pulled back into the light." He walked away, with Corin's lifeless body over his shoulder. They left Erebus in flames, not consumed, but freed. And as Vigil rose into orbit once more, Grady opened a final transmission across the Black Flag channels. "Power was never the T-Hunt mission," he said. "Truth was. Remember that, or the fire will return, and this time it'll burn us." The message cut through every corrupted cell like a blade. Some heard it and turned, others didn't, but the seed was planted. The next battle wouldn't be against the Council. It would be for Earth's soul, and Grady was ready to fight it. They didn't cheer when it happened. There were no victory parades, no glowing news feeds, no grand declarations across the stars. When the Black Flag Pact officially dissolved, the galaxy held its breath, too stunned, too broken, too changed. To speak. It began not with a coup, but with a trial. Grady demanded it, not for vengeance, but for memory. He would not let history bury what had been done. And he would not allow Earth to become another empire with blood-soaked hands and no mirror to face. They captured Malric Haven in the ashes of Erebus, shackled in silence, stripped of command. He was still alive, more shadow than man, his spine a mess of melted neural ports, his eyes dull but dangerous. They brought him not to a battlefield, not to a prison, but to a neutral station orbiting the ruins of old Council space. It was called Solace Station. But there was no comfort inside. The tribunal was made of those who remembered, survivors from Nova Auris, elders from the Zelari resistance, even a Varick warborn named Kale who once swore he'd burn every human colony to ash until he saw the truth. Now he stood beside Grady on the tribunal floor, cloaked not in rage, but justice. The galaxy watched. Hundreds of billions, across thousands of systems. Grady stood and laid it all bare. The betrayal, the silence, the experiments, the vaults of memory twisted into tools of control, the cost paid in children's lives, in screaming colonies, in truth buried beneath political convenience. He ended with a message spoken into a room heavy with history. We did not rise from betrayal to become tyrants. We rose so no one else would have to. When it came time for Malric to speak, he said only this: "You'll regret letting them doubt you. Fear is cleaner than questions." Grady said nothing in response. They sentenced him not to death, but to isolation, not exile to a distant moon, but to Memnos, a station-turned-monument, a place filled with the preserved logs and images of the fallen, a prison of memory. For a man who had tried to erase it all, it was the only punishment that mattered. But justice wasn't the end. The real test came after. Without the Black Flag Pact to enforce order, the galaxy teetered on collapse. Rival factions, prepared fleets, colonies fortified. Everyone waited for someone to take control. Grady didn single quotes T. He refused Earth's council seat, refused command, refused power. "I'm not here to build empires," he told the delegates. "I'm here to guard the story." Instead, a new unity accord was signed this time between species who had once stood on opposite ends of history: Zilari, Varric, Rasari, even former council defectors. Earth took one seat. No more, no less. The new flag was not one of dominance. It was one of remembrance, a white banner with a single black flame, a warning and a promise. Grady returned to Nova Auris not as a commander, but as a witness. The colony had been rebuilt not as a city of politics or commerce, but a sanctuary. Children played in the fields where ash once fell. The soil had healed. The sky had learned to be silent in peace, not in death. He spent his days walking the gardens, reading to the orphans of war, planting names into the memorial wall, each one carved by hand, never automated. Every letter mattered. Taren visited often no longer the haunted boy from the pods, but a young man with purpose. He joined the new Interstellar Ethics Network, working to ensure the mistakes of the past would never repeat. "You know they still speak your name in fear?" he asked one evening. Grady shook his head, eyes tired. "Good. Let fear be the gate and memory the key. Do you ever regret it?" Grady looked at the stars, then at the ground beneath his feet. The same. "Soil that once burned. I regret we had to become monsters, just to remind the galaxy what humanity really is." Silence stretched between them. But it was no longer heavy. It was earned. Years passed. Grady aged. The galaxy healed. The Black Flag became legend, a symbol both feared and revered. It was taught not as a warning against Earth, but as a story of what happens when betrayal goes unanswered, and what rises from the ashes when it finally is. One night, beneath a violet sky, Grady sat alone at the edge of the memorial, staring at the names of his wife and daughter. The wind was gentle. The stars, for once, quiet. He pulled a worn box from beneath the bench. The letters. Hundreds of them. UNCNT. Unread. He opened the lid for the first time in years and placed one letter, just one, on the wall. It read, "We remembered. We fought. We lost pieces of ourselves. But we found you again, in every child who plays without fear, in every system that dares to speak, in every truth that survived the fire. We are Earth, and we remember." He stood, he breathed, and, for the first time in decades, he finally felt alive.